You can travel. It's just fascinating. The world opens up to you when you travel. And for me personally, architecture, through academics, through profession, through travel, has been one of the constants, right? Because everywhere I go, I can study it.
Right.
And push yourself. You have to break it down to, understanding how much, what your limitations are, what your constraints are, what you can do. But you have to drive it yourself, right? There will always be constraints. There will be people who will say, don't do it. There will be people who will say, why do you need to do it? Oh, it's too dangerous. Okay, yeah, sure. But why not try it, right? If you never do it, you will never know.
So welcome everyone to our third edition of Spheres of Learning. Today's talk is with Dr. Reena Mehta, and she'll be talking to us about a topic that is interesting for people of all ages, about how we can get out of our comfort zone, right? It might be especially relevant for students as they think about what to do next, which college to go to, what things to do. We've all been protected in our home environments, but it's not, the topic of today is not only restricted for students. Some of us as teachers, some of us as school administrators, and even adults, sometimes get into the mode of being in a comfort zone, right? And so Reena, who I've known since many years, kindly agreed to participate in our talk today on her journey through life, through academics, and through the many things that she's done and how she got out of her comfort zone. So a little background about Reena again. Right, she started off with an undergraduate degree in architecture from Rachna Sunset in Mumbai. And she also did her master's in architecture from Penn State University in the US. And she then, in fact, even did a PhD in architecture from the prestigious University of California at Berkeley. Now, Reena, can you tell us a little bit about your academic journey and about this picture?
Hello, everyone. First of all, thanks, Girish, for giving me this opportunity to be able to share my journey through, the various aspects of life in which I have gone beyond what I started off with. And so I'm thankful to be here.
We're all excited to hear from you on all the things you've done.
I'll try my best. So talking about this picture about my academics, yes, I started with undergraduate, did my master's, and went on to do a PhD in architecture. Right. And you're asking me about who the boy is. The opportunity I got to do my PhD was when I became pregnant with my first child. And I was at crossroads. Do I pursue PhD, or I deal with my first pregnancy? And the idea was, why not do both? And so basically stuck to the idea of doing both. And here he is, 5 years old, with my second one on this way, and me graduating from Berkeley.
Oh, really? So, so you actually did your PhD between two kids?
Yes, I call them my bookends of my degree. It was an interesting experience because it was like, one thing I can say is, when my baby is sleeping, what do I do? It's about choices, right? It's the child is sleeping, I have time. Do I read a book? Do I do housework? Do I study? What do I do? What's that 1 hour that's most precious? When the baby is sleeping. And it was always about choices, and I would keep my focus on doing work that I cannot do when the baby's awake. So for 5 years, it was pretty disciplined journey to reach and finish.
Wow. Congratulations again. Of course, this must have been many years ago.
Yes.
Yeah. So, so now the topic of today is, of course, getting out of your comfort zone, and something that you've done, probably less than 1% of people in the world have traveled to 2 or 3 countries, and you have traveled to 51 countries, which is quite amazing. So tell us, and this seems to be a map that you shared earlier with all the countries you've been to. So can you tell us about, how this passion for travel came about, how you decide to go to places, how you travel, and all of that?
Sure. I think travel is subjective in terms of the scale of travel. When you invited me to do the talk, I went and did this map, and I realized, oh my God, over 30 years it's been to so many countries. Then reflecting back further, I realized growing up in India itself, I have been traveling to my aunt's places, one in Delhi, one in Borivali, one in Surat, and I'm based in Bombay. So my summers have gone to all these 4 places in India itself, along with travel with my family, of course, to other parts of India. And then with my architecture college, where each year we would go to some place during our week-long architecture tour and study architecture and travel. So travel to me has been part of my life growing up, except it was within India itself, right? And what I learned was there is so much to know about other places, other systems, other cultures, even within our country, right? I mean, it's not just Bombay itself. Right. So that was my comfort. And we're talking about being out of comfort zone, but right. That being in India and travel was my comfort, right? I mean, the whole audience has probably traveled to different parts of India. So travel is kind of part of a lot of people's lives.
Yeah. So you developed that passion for travel. That was your comfort, but then you started going to different places. Maybe to a place where you didn't know the language and all of that, right? And
right. So growing up in India, it was during a travel within India, but then I got the opportunity to travel to Israel, and I said, why not? It's a country. This was 30 years ago, right? Approximately 30 years ago. So it was something where we didn't have internet growing up. Remember? I mean, there was no internet. There was no Googling of what is Israel or what language or what culture, except I knew about places through my architecture world history class, where we would take a country around the world and we would study architecture, right? Like we studied Egypt and we studied pyramids. So I had those imaginations in my mind while growing up in India. And so when I got this opportunity to go to Israel, I was like very fascinated because I would learn about another culture, another architecture, even though I didn't know the language or the people. I didn't know anybody in Israel except my husband and some of his colleagues, but it was, why not?
Right.
It's travel. So these pictures that you're seeing on the screen one is on the right of the dome is Jerusalem, and the other one is Baha'i Temple. And I mean, I don't want to do a history lesson here, but
right.
We all know the history of Jerusalem, and
yes.
And
one of the key historic sites in the world where so many religions were born here and all of that.
So, so that was my first experience of being out of comfort, right? I mean, out of my zone, my sense of familiarity with Indian travel, right? This is completely different. But I was open to it. It was interesting to just be there. This is Mount Sinai, and we were hiking whenever we got the opportunity over the weekend. this is Masada, it's the Dead Sea, and we would basically dive into a swim in Masada and then hike up the mountains there. It was an opportunity. I mean, it was something where I never said no. And if I got a chance, I would do it.
So you
The
got
other
your
picture is of
open water dive certification there.
right. So I mean, Israel is near Mediterranean Sea, right? I mean,
Right.
diving is Red Sea. You can dive into that. And the opportunity was to say, hey, why don't I do my certification there? And I said, why not? I will take it.
Can you tell us a little bit of what open water dive certification means? Is it normal diving or what does it mean?
So open water is up to 30 meters. And advanced goes beyond. So they don't allow, so you have to train, it's the depth of how much diving you can do.
Okay.
So snorkeling is at the top of the water. Then the first, open water goes down to 30 feet, sorry, not meters. And then you go deeper. And it requires you to do it in different stages. So this was my very first experience to do diving there. And you can ask me, how did I know about this, or why was I so comfortable doing it? Is because I've seen so many Hollywood movies growing up, and the English movies, the Hollywood movies would have all these activities through some form or the other. And I used to always dream about it. I never got these opportunities in India to do it 30 years ago, but I was aware about it. I was exposed to it, so it was like, you can do these things, right? And so when I went to Israel and I got the opportunity, I took it. And
so
I did it.
Took it with both hands and legs and heart and just dived in.
And did it. That's the whole idea. And I kept saying, why not? Was I scared? Absolutely. Was I unsure? Sure. Why not? I mean, it's a new country, a new place, new language. But
and so did you have to learn the language? How were you able to navigate in all of these kind of places where English was not so much spoken?
Well,
I guess Israel, of course, speaks English, but yeah.
I did study the Hebrew language for 3 months.
Okay.
It's called Ulpan. But it's not enough to be able to communicate because, you speak some sentences and you get a lot back in Hebrew. And I said, that's a little difficult to understand. So then you talk in sign languages, or, you say, you can, there is a guidebook. So I don't have the Israel guidebook, but I don't know if you can see, there are guidebooks.
So like the Lonely Planet guidebooks or other guidebooks?
Yeah. So you have the guidebook and there are some words you can translate, or you point out to saying, hey, I want this when you go to shop. And it's not that difficult. I mean, you use other forms of communication, not just the language, and it works. I mean, for diving instructions, of course, they spoke English. Yeah, I didn't learn that in Hebrew.
Right.
But it's not as fluent English as what we have learned in India.
Right.
But it's you figured it out. I mean.
So tell us a little bit about these pictures on backpacking. And what is backpacking? Many people at least in India, they don't really understand backpacking. They sometimes see some foreigners carrying some things. And they're saying, tell us a little bit about your story about backpacking, the joys and the sorrows of backpacking, the travails of backpacking. Yeah.
So
and why are people crazy enough to backpack in the first place when they can just go to the hotel, right?
So Egypt and Turkey are 2 examples I'm giving here. They are right near Israel, and you can just take a flight and you'll be in Egypt in a couple of hours, or in Turkey in a couple of hours. And we were the black and white pictures, before that time, we didn't have that many Google, iPhones to take 100 pictures. These are like precious black and white, the only few pictures of those times that I have. So the black and white pictures of Egypt, and, it's like you go there and you see this market full of Arab men, and we walked there, and this is a camel market, for example. And we
Oh,
were
this is a
discussing,
camel market? Okay. Okay.
yeah, unfortunately, it's not very clear, but this was a camel market, and we were like laughing and saying, do we need to buy a camel? You know, we're going to a camel market, and shall we buy a camel? And we were having fun, just exploring, right? I mean, have you ever seen a camel market, right? I mean, it's a whole different culture. So it was fascinating to just be able to be there and, you know, visit such a place, right? I mean, and I forget which fort is on the bottom, but those are the kind of travels, like, you know, again, architecture fascinates me. And we would go and see whatever we could at that point in time.
And as a woman, when you were going to a camel market, were there other women in the market? And, you know, how was traveling as a woman different from, you know, maybe traveling as a man? Yeah.
It's a little different, but you have to respect the culture you are in. Okay. I mean, you know, you can't go to a Arab market full of men. You know, if you look at the clothing, it's fully dressed, right? I mean, right. I would wear my Indian dress and not have a problem. I mean, me, because it's fully clothed. And you just go and respect it. If they have to wear the hijab, then you wear that and go and respect. And you respect the culture you are in, rather than saying, I can't do this or something, right? Because you have to respect the place you're in to be equally respected back. That's how I look at it. Yes. So it was not an issue for me. Okay. From that perspective. So switching to the
what about backpacking? This is a picture of you on some road with a backpack, I guess. Yeah.
Right. And if you can see in my hand, it's my lonely travel guidebook. And we were basically trying to travel through Turkey and take the local buses. And, you know, I've grown up in Bombay and traveled by buses and trains. And to me, this was no different. You know, we have hustled, you know, we know what the difficulty for a woman is in Bombay itself, you know, even growing up then, and I don't think it's any different now. But I know, I mean, as a woman, we are very aware in growing up in Bombay, how to navigate the world full of men in the bus system, for example. So when in Turkey also, we took buses, we traveled, you know, to meet with the locals. And a backpack is basically the blue bag that you see in the picture. Yeah. You carry it on your back. So you're traveling very light. What you can carry in that.
Wow, that looks like a heavy bag to me.
Comparatively, not with the 2-3 suitcases, right? Is compared to that, this is light. Okay. And what
so how much does a backpack weigh, for example?
I think in
10, 20
pounds.
kilos?
So probably, yeah. Okay. But we are backpacking, meaning in this particular scenario, we are not trekking and backpacking. We are just carrying our luggage on our back and then taking the buses. So it's easier to move. The mobility in this particular scenario.
You just kind of walk with it, basically.
Yeah. So if this is very funny story though, because this picture is basically, we got dropped off at a certain point and we were just in the middle of nowhere waiting for a bus to come. So with the backpack, we were like, okay, fine, you know, leave the bags there and wait for the bus. But if I had suitcases, right, it's not easy to walk. Now, if I had to walk to the next bus stop, I would easily be able to do that, for that matter. So that's how, you know, you just explore and travel. And that's how we did it at least 30 years ago. This is 30 years ago, right? So.
Yeah. Tell us about this.
So life goes on, right? I mean, for everybody, right? These are my kids. And when you have traveled with young kids, you know, I hear stories that you cannot travel. And for me, I don't think kids are the problem. I think parents are the problem. If they say kids, you cannot travel.
There are a few parents on the call, but okay.
Oh, sorry, I don't mean to offend you, but I'm just saying that I think kids are very resilient.
Uh-huh.
And so these are pictures of my kids. And, I carried, the heavy lifting was done by my husband. I'm not that strong. I'll be honest. But I would carry my young one in my backpack. And,
So like this is like a pram come back. You
yeah,
can
it's a
carry your kids
stroller come backpack. It's a stroller come, what do you call it? Not a backpack, but a child carrier, I guess.
Yes. Okay.
So I could then move, right? My older son can walk easily. He would
Okay.
walk. So the point of showing the slide is life does not stop because you have children or you have constraints. If you want to travel, you figure out ways.
Okay, so here you went to Venezuela with them. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, and you have to deal with the logistics, right? I mean, my son is not looking too happy in this side, but my younger one is having fun with my hair. What I'm saying is, you just have to figure out different ways,
right,
in whatever phase of life you're in, right? But continue doing what you want to do. And if you look on the right, the both of them are having a blast.
Right.
So
tell us a little bit about Galapagos. Not many of us know it, but I guess this is where there's a lot of animals and wildlife.
Yeah, so those are the islands that Darwin, I believe, first explored. And that is where those islands are basically quite restricted. Only few of them you can visit. And you can dive there and dive with and swim with sharks. And if you want, I can do a whole talk on Galapagos and share all of those pictures. But it's very fascinating to study the history of origin in Galapagos.
So the origin of species of Darwin is basically based on
Darwinism, and
many of the species found in Galapagos.
Yes.
And this is Kilimanjaro?
Yes. So again, this is basically, travel with young adults now. So you can do different kind of things. Life doesn't stop. This is when with my kids, I believe they were 15 and 18 maybe. And all of us went trekking up Kilimanjaro, which is 19,340 feet.
So this is the tallest mountain in Africa.
It's a walk. I mean, but it's a long walk.
Okay. And with through jungle and through is the wildlife and all of that.
Yes. No, not that you don't see that much wildlife, at least not while you're trekking. But it goes through 4 different terrains. And I believe it was a 7-day or a 9-day trek. And it's fully supported because they have a porter system that they want to survive there. So you have to take the porters and the system who will support you. So we were supported by around 15 people because they carry the food and they carry everything, because there's no tea houses or anything on this track. Yeah. So it needs to, but that's how the structure of this, they don't allow us to just go by ourselves. Right. You have to use their system there.
And all of this stuff for a person in the audience who wants to travel the world, you would read guidebooks like Lonely Planet or other guidebooks and figure out how to do this. How does one go about? Yeah.
Absolutely. You would, like there are many books, like even if you do India, I don't know if you can see it.
No, yeah. Yes. Yes.
So anybody can do it. You just have to, depending on what you're doing. I mean, this one is pretty much of a walk. But you have to train for it, right? And you can figure it out based on Facebook groups. You can figure it out based on, now you have so much access.
Right.
I mean, there are Facebook groups, you can just talk on it, right? You can, it's very easy to do it right now. And this was not 30 years ago. This was just maybe 7 years ago. So you can find a lot.
Yeah. And this is when they're older, I guess.
This is just last year. Yes.
Okay.
So the point I want to make here is the fascination of architecture that I've grown up with or studied. So on the
So Reena, we've lost you. Hello.
And this pyramid is the first thing that we studied in our architecture college. So 35 years ago, I saw this photograph and I said, wow, the very first pyramid is in Iraq. And just last year, we were able to visit it.
Wow. So you went to Iraq even during COVID and all of that with family. Wow.
That's after the vaccines, though. But
after the vaccines, okay. Cool.
After the booster, yes. But what I'm saying is, you can travel. It's just fascinating. The world opens up to you when you travel. And for me personally, architecture, through academics, through profession, through travel, has been one of the constants, right? Because everywhere I go, I can study it.
Right.
And
so this is a lot of metals. So tell us about tell us about this.
Yes, that's true. It is a lot of metal. Oh, you said metals or metals? I heard metal. If I sell this, I won't get much, but these are my, this is, again, these are my medals that I have earned over last 30 years. And these are all my running medals. And it's been a journey. You know, I didn't start off strong. I used to run in school. That's the only running I did. But here I got the opportunity to dream about, running more. And I started with a 5K. 5K is 5 kilometers.
Yeah.
Okay. So started with a 5K, 10K runs. And then, basically progress to half and a full and a double and ultra marathons.
So what is an ultra marathon for those of us who don't fully, I haven't even heard the word that much in India. In India, marathon is like almost the ultimate. What's an ultra marathon?
So marathon, is 26.2 miles or 42 kilometers, right?
Yeah.
So in San Francisco, they started doing, so that was the San Francisco Marathon that I used to run for many years. And then they started doing double, which is you run the San Francisco Marathon one way, and then you continue running it the other way. So that became double marathons. And then ultra is the one that I did was for 72 miles. That's even longer than a double marathon. But ultra is basically anything over 20, over a marathon. That's what they define it as. So a double marathon is an ultra marathon as well. And an ultra can be more than a double too. So anything about 26.2 miles is an ultra marathon. So
and so then you started reflecting, you've been even writing about these things over time.
Yeah, I started writing about it, and then I realized it is such a great document to document all your reflections and thoughts, because it becomes a kind of a journal. And I think it's a very critical skill set to develop, because it helps capture the struggles that you have gone through. It helps capture the journey that you have done. And this basically document, did it in 2013. And when I was putting this presentation together, I realized I actually did it that long time ago.
Right. So nine years back, you wrote about your first 30 miler. Yeah.
Yes.
Amazing.
And I'm like, And when I look at it, it tells the story about the logistics of, how to find time, how to make time to do what you want to do, because there was, I had kids growing up in the house, right? I had to find ways to find time to keep doing what I did.
Life
That's
gets
why I
in the
just
way.
realized life gets in the way.
Interesting topic. Yeah. So what motivates you? I'm assuming with all these marathons and ultra marathons, you have to practice a hell of a lot. What motivates you to keep going in all this practice? Yeah, practice.
I think I like to see myself grow and keep pushing myself beyond what I do.
Okay.
So first, when you start running 5K, it feels like, oh my God, it's 5K. But when you keep doing it, it's like, what? It's only 5K. So then what? Then it's a 10K. So you're pushing your boundary. And why do we do it? That's a great question. It's like, why do we climb mountains?
Yeah, why?
You can't answer that question, because there is this joy. There is a certain joy or a certain satisfaction that comes after it when you do it. I think. Is it painless? No. There is a lot of effort and pain and ups and downs. Yeah. But it is the fact that when you go through all of that, you reach the finish, right? I finished my marathon, whether I've done it very fast, slow, whatever. But that fact that you finish, you reached your goal, keeps me going. And when you practice it over and over again, you will get better at it. Was I a great runner?
It's not about the time, it's about you take up something and you just finish it. That kind of motivates
you want to do something. If you want to do something, do it. Can you do it right away? Maybe, maybe not. But you have to push yourself. You have to break it down to, understanding what your limitations are, what your constraints are, what you can do. But you have to drive it yourself, right? There will always be constraints. There will be people who will say, don't do it. There will be people who will say, why do you need to do it? Oh, it's too dangerous. Okay, yeah, sure. But why not try it, right? If you never do it, you will never know. So if anybody wants to do anything, and this applies to everybody, right? It's not just the kids on the call, in the audience, or it's the adults too. If you want to do something, go for it. It's not going to be easy.
So you think this as part of doing something, when you reflect about it, can go back, a few days later and maybe even years later, that helps you to itself.
Yes, absolutely. It helps you realize that, oh, it wasn't easy. You had to put that difficult, the churn in. And if you go to the next slide, I'll show you my support team.
Yeah. 1 second. Yeah.
So this is my support team, my 2 boys. My 3 boys, my husband too. Right. So my center picture is my 2 boys. And because I wanted to keep running, I would just run around my house. And they found that one fine day, they came with water, saying, Mom, you're running. And they came with water on their scooter. I was very surprised, but that's the only way I could find time. I can't leave the kids alone too long, but that's the only way to
train.
Ran
around the house, and unlike in a marathon where there may be water stops, your support team was your kids giving water along the way. Okay.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Exactly. So you have to find, what I'm saying is you have to find different ways of doing it, right?
Right. I understand you
no
were doing this even during the COVID and all, even the strictest lockdowns, you used to run around your house and do this, right?
Yes, that luxury we have here. In India, it's not possible when the lockdown and you're in the house. But here, It's
Yeah.
possible. So yes. So on my
In fact, interestingly, let me just break for a second. When you talked about reflections, one second. Yeah, go ahead. So while you were doing this, you actually had time to work. You were going to 51 countries. How did you do all this?
yes, I did work. I still work. I still am a licensed architect here in
Right.
California. Got my license here.
Uh-huh. So you
And
worked at several places, at Starbucks, at Apple. These are
these
just
were,
two of the name brands you worked with. So can you tell us a little bit about the Apple campus, which I guess is the headquarters in Silicon Valley? Tell us a little bit about, I guess is this called the spaceship?
yes, it's called the spaceship. And if you look at the circle,
Uh-huh.
it's a 1 mile diameter. 1 mile is 1.6 kilometer diameter.
Wow.
And it's 4 stories high.
Uh-huh.
It's a basically LEED certified, platinum certified, very naturally ventilated building. The official or the published cost is $5 billion.
Wow. Uh-huh.
And I worked on it during construction time frame for 3 years.
Wow. And so you can walk from one place to any other place just by going around in a circle, basically.
Yeah, there is a tram in the basement level, and you can take the tram, and it takes like, I think, 45 minutes to walk the whole circle.
Wow.
If you're really going around the circle. Yeah, so it was a very fascinating building. And I took the challenge up to be there, right? Because
Okay.
why not again?
And
Starbucks
and similarly with Starbucks, what were you doing with Starbucks? I'm asking you this from a perspective of, linking your academic with what you're doing professionally. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So Starbucks basically functioned as a licensed architect from design to construction, finished of Starbucks retail shops in Northern California. So that went on for a few years as well. So, you asked the question, was I working while doing all this? Yes. The idea is to balance your life, to continue to take care of your health, which is my workout.
Right.
To continue to do your professional growth.
Right.
And of course, family. And it's a constant struggle to keep the balance. But the goal is do little of everything every day. That's how I like to do it.
Okay. So you're juggling family, kids, academics, professional, running, ultramarathons, traveling, all of that.
Just keep doing it and balance it, and it just, and why not? Why, if you have the ability to do it, and it keeps you growing. It keeps you exploring to do, get out of your comfort zone, right? Expand your boundaries. You don't have to do it.
Yes.
But then you will never know.
Nice. So a few months back, I guess, was it May or this thing, you did the Everest Base Camp Trek. So tell us a little bit about it.
So Everest Base Camp.
Yeah. We're all excited to hear about an Everest trek. This is up to the base camp, of course, but yeah.
This is, of course, base camp, yes, not Everest. But I got the opportunity to do this because I was coming to India to meet family after 2 years of COVID, and not being able to come. And this idea of, if I go to India and if I can do Everest Base Camp was always in my mind, right? Okay. Unfortunately, my husband didn't have the time, or I could not find anybody to go with. And then the question that came was, then will you go alone? And I said, yes. And I said, why not? Right?
Oh, so you did the trek alone. But I mean,
yes.
There was a Sherpa with you and...
There was a guide with me,
Okay.
but when I say alone, meaning not with a group of my known people, not with a group of, or a person who I know, right? It was basically me figuring out this entire trip, making bookings with, people I think I know through some other people.
Right.
And going with a guide. And because I didn't want to be completely alone. There are people who do it solo, which I didn't want to do that much. So I did have a guide. And luckily, it was a fantastic experience because my tour organizer gave me a female guide and we became sisters together, like 24/7 we were together. And it was just a fabulous experience because it was a 13-day trek. And the first 6 days or 7 days were going from Kathmandu to Lukla to Phagding, and you can see the list, to Namche Bazaar, Tengboche, Dingboche, Labuche. And
so this is Kathmandu is my cursor, then Lukla, then Namche Bazaar, then Dingboche, I guess. Yeah.
Yes. So if you go through the yellow line on the map, you are going up all the way to Mount Everest. That's the route. And then the blue line was coming back down in 3 days, because coming down is safer, right? Because you're not going to hit altitude sickness.
So from day 1 to day 9, EBC is Everest Base Camp, where you were going up, and then it just takes 3 days to come back.
Yeah. So that was the goal. And so this is the start of Lukla. It starts at 8,700 feet, and then you keep walking. It was a fantastic experience because I was all by myself, and the goal was to just experience. Pause here for a second, but experience the space, and the only you can say, was it scary? Was it difficult? I wasn't scared on this one because I'm used to hiking and trekking.
Right.
So I was comfortable with myself. And was it difficult? Yes, of course it's difficult. It's going up altitude and walking almost, I believe, 4 to 6 or 4 to 7 hours every day up to the, up while going up. And then coming down, it was, I believe, 8 to 10 hours each day walking. So it was a lot of walking and a lot of, but that was fabulous. For me, I just experienced, it was a fascinating experience and the best decision to go solo because it was a unique experience by itself. Yeah. So the reason I asked you to stop here is because this is one of the spots where you can see Everest. So the photograph in which you see me, right above my head, you see a little bit to the left. This one? Right there. That's Everest. That's Everest. Yes. So on the trek, you can see Everest 3 times along the trek. You don't see Everest even from the Everest Base Camp because it's right behind. But this is one of the spots, and my guide was so excited to show it to me. She says, you have to wake up and see it. She woke me up at 5 in the morning, and first thing I said, is it 6 o'clock? Why are you waking me up? And she said, you have to see the Everest. I said, okay, I'm coming. And it was
otherwise, I guess there's cloud cover and all of that. Also.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So it's difficult. Otherwise, it was one of those beautiful days and you could see it, and she wanted to show it to me. I said, fine. To the left is the Tengboche Monastery. Yeah. And we were lucky, or we were on time to go and partake in the ceremony that happens around 3 o'clock in the evening, in the afternoon. And I haven't put all the pictures here, but it was a very fabulous experience to, participate in the life of a real live monastery people, right? To see and partake in the religious ceremony that was happening. And then we continued. So this is Tengboche to Dingboche, and these are
the other page. Yeah.
There are a couple of acclimatization days where you stay overnight and just, stay at those two locations to acclimatize. And
shared a video. Let me try and see if I can play that. 1 second. Wow.
so I was very lucky because
hear the wind. Yeah.
I think the out of the 6 days or 7 days of climb up, the 4 or 5 days were like these. It was beautiful. There was no cloud cover. It was just beautiful. And if you say, did I struggle? I didn't struggle as much, but I did fall kind of like, I got developed kumbu cough, as they call it on the mountains. Is altitude related. So I was coughing quite a bit for the last 3 days up to the climb. But, you deal with it. You deal with other issues. They will come up because this is an high altitude trek, and
right.
You never know how your body is going to adjust. But you deal with it, and you keep going.
And this is at the top of the base camp. Yeah.
This is at the top at the Everest Base Camp. Yes.
And this is you want, I guess, your Yosemite, right? Half Dome.
This is Half Dome, Yosemite, and the funny part is, we like to do photo shoots. So we were like, okay, if we want to do a photo shoot, I can take my skirt and my dress. And of course, I can't walk in this all the way up, but we carried it, and I changed it right on the top. And
really?
That's how we... Hey, why not? It's just a fun little thing we do. And that is right, so I changed and I walked to the edge, and that ledge is very, very famous because everybody gets very worried that it's going to fall down, but it doesn't fall. People stand there.
It's on this rock which seems that it will fall. Okay. I guess, and the saying is, a mountain is not higher than your confidence because it will be under your feet if you reach the top. The funny part is, I had got a good morning WhatsApp with the same picture. And this is for the audience. And I sent it to Reena last week with this. It was the same picture, but not with Reena on the thing. And 10 minutes later, she WhatsApped me back this picture. And it took me some time to realize, wow, it's the same picture. And it has her. So we thought we'll end the talk at that note, and what I did want to show, a very interesting piece that you brought up while you were talking, was the thing that while you're doing all of this, you had these reflections, and you had your blog, and you talked about the how you did your first 30-mile marathon and stuff, right? So we have a thing that we have called MySphere, right? And I'd like to show you one of our students who starts building her portfolio on a platform, right? Kind of like reflection of what she's done, what her hobbies are, and then what are the projects she's done. And, we'd also be releasing a blog and a journal kind of soon. So that, just like you showed us what you did, 9 years ago, when you ran your first 30-miler, the platform will allow students to kind of then reflect on whatever they've done over time, right? Just like your presentation today, you're calling it the yearbook, right? So MySphere is basically the yearbook, and it's really a cross yearbook of students where they can start building their own portfolio over time across the different spheres. In your case, it was about running and traveling and architecture and having kids, and whatever, right? And the students can start building on that. Right?
No, this is to me, the platform is fantastic because this is what the kids should do. It's documenting experiences is very, very important. And when you learn to document it and then you look back and you reflect on it, it makes you realize that nothing comes easy. Yeah, there are all these difficulties that you go through, and when you master them or you overcome them, you forget that you have put in so many efforts to get to that point, right? It's like if the student documents it here, then they can realize, okay, maybe I can go in maybe a different direction, and what do I need to go to that direction? And maybe the mentor from Curiosity Gym can say, you can add something and take this particular class. But the documentation helps other people also to view what you have done, right? So like a picture like this tells me so much about the person, right? Oh, this person can do water pollution research, for example. Right. And immediately it tells the other mentors or other people that, okay, there is so much value to this person because that person can do or has done this work, right? So documentation is very critical. And I think it's like very, very important for everybody to come together to learn and create their own spheres, right? Their own worlds, so to speak.
Yeah. So that's the goal. Now what we'll do, Reena, is we'll take questions from the audience, right?
Sure.
Maybe many questions from the audience on different things. So Bhagshir, Reena, can you read out any questions we have?
Yes, I will. So the first question we have is, how do you decide your next travel destination?
There are many factors. In the sense, there is budget, there is the weather, right? Because in the US, when it is summer, some parts of the world, it's cold. When it is cold here, some parts are warm. Then there is a factor of our schedules. If you're talking about during the phase of our kids, it was a school schedule, right? I mean, we could never come to India in summer because your summer doesn't align with our school system here. So by the time we come there, your school system has already started, for example. Then there is, what do we want to see? From a cultural perspective, adventure perspective, or what do we want to do really? So depending on all these factors, we have go on through the decisions. For example, a Kilimanjaro trip, you need to have a whole system. If we have gone to Iran, we need a guide. We cannot just go on our own. We have to have their tourist guide with us and so forth. So there are logistical constraints that kick in. So based on, if you're asking where we are going next, in this current scenario, I can tell you we are going to Portugal next week, for example. And why? Because it's my birthday, and second, we had bought the tickets 2 years ago, and we couldn't go. And because of COVID, it kept getting postponed, and it's kind of like, well, we have the tickets, so we are going. So there are many factors, right? And depending on all these other constraints, our next decision comes into play.
So another question was, what is your biggest takeaway from your travels and adventure? I think you answered it, but that is a question from the audience.
Yeah. The biggest takeaway is you learn a lot, and you understand life from many different perspectives. We all want to feel very comfortable in the way we do things, because that is our worldview, where we say what we do is correct. This is the way to do things. Yes. But there are, in my mind, that is one way of doing things. There are many ways to do things, So when you travel, you see those other things, right? The way life works in different countries is different. It is really defined by the weather they are in. For example, Yemen. We had gone to Yemen, and in Yemen, it's architecturally, Sana'a, for example, the place called Sana'a, it's architecturally very fabulous, but it is hot in the middle. It's in the desert. It's very, very hot in the middle of the day. So everybody goes to sleep, goes home, takes 3-4 hours nap, is basically in the shade. There's nothing we can do to travel, right? Like explore. So we have to adjust to that culture, for example, and travel in the morning or late in the evening. So you learn that there are many ways of doing things. There are many structures of life. It just it's, you become more, at least I have become more tolerant, or, saying, yeah, we are all different. And if you look at India itself, we have so many differences, right? So I think it opens the mind that there are many ways to do things.
I'll take one more question from chat, and then Bhagishri, maybe we can take verbal questions from the audience as well.
Yes.
One question from chat is, would you like to revisit any of the places that you've traveled to, and which would it be? And does it interest you to see what has changed, especially after a few years, if you go back to the same place?
Yes, I would like to go back to places I visited. But there is so much more left to see. So
Right.
at this point, even if we go back to the same country that we have visited, we probably will explore a new part that we haven't seen.
That you haven't visited. Yeah. Understood. Yeah.
Unless something that resonates with us to go revisit for a particular reason, right?
Understood.
Unless someone says, Reena, why don't you do an architectural history study?
Yeah, and especially
what you
looking at change or something, I guess.
And looking at change, and then do the study. Maybe then I'll go back. But still there's a lot to see and explore, and something new. So that's probably what we'll do.
Yeah. So people in the audience, if you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand, virtual hand.
So if you have a question, please raise your virtual hand. I will unmute you. Anyone who has a question?
You can ask me any question. It doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about
Yes. Yeah.
It's right or wrong, or
So there was one question on Everest while we were waiting. Besides your guide and yourself as you climb up Everest, are there other people that live at the different spots, or is it completely deserted?
Oh no, this trek is actually is dotted with small villages and tea houses. So as every place that we talked about has tea houses and surrounded by a small village. So it's never so we stayed in the tea houses every night and ate dinner, breakfast, lunch at the tea houses. So it's actually not a desolated trek at all, except towards the upper regions where the towns become smaller and smaller. You may not see people between the two destination spots.
So the last 2 days, or
the last 2 days, yeah, because it's too high altitude. It's not really,
habitable,
not easy to, yeah.
And so, do people stay at Everest Base Camp if they're not trying to take Everest, or do they just go there and come back the same day usually? Or is there a kind of a town in Everest Base Camp, or?
The Everest Base Camp, most of the itineraries, I think all the itineraries, they bring us back to Gorakshek. They don't want anybody staying at the base camp unless you are part of the Everest climb. So there are tents and there is a small setup, but that's for the Everest climbers. You know, the whole Everest expedition climbers. So they do stay there, of course, because they go up and down the Everest mountain. And they have 3 camps levels, camp 1, camp 2, camp 3. So they go up and down. So they stay there.
There was another question from, I think, a girl in the audience. Have you traveled to these countries with your family, unmarried or married? Did your parents allow you to travel single and alone?
My parents would allow me to travel single in India because that's where I was single. But then I have been married and traveled with my family, my husband,
and
then
Everest,
with my kids.
you did it alone, but with a guide, but
yes, and Everest I did. Everest, India, I traveled alone. Everest, I did it by myself. Absolutely, yes. And then I've traveled alone by myself to my conferences and all that. So yes, I have traveled alone in that sense.
There's another question. While taking risks, how do you keep yourself calm and know what is best for you if there's something, very unexpected that happens?
That's a good question. What makes you think I'm calm? Well, it depends what it is, right? If something unexpected happens, it happens. I mean, you just have to deal with it. If it's, ask me what unexpected, because that's a very interesting question.
So depending on the specific scenario,
yeah,
you think through how to handle it, and then
you think through how to handle. For example, we were in Romania. We were going, I think we were going to India via Romania, and for some reason they told us we had to stay in that country for 2 days at the airport, and because of some flight issue. And I was like, okay, if you want us to stay in Romania, and then you should give us visa to go and come back, because I don't want to stay at the airport just because of your problem or your goof up of the ticket. And they would not agree to that. So I kept arguing, saying, I am not going to stay in Romania forever. I just want to visit it because I don't want to stay at the airport, and I have my return ticket to India. And that unknown, unexpected happened. And I said, fine, I'll see Romania for 2 days. And they did give us, after a lot of pushing and arguments at the airport, they said, go visit it and come back. I said, I will come back because I'm going to India at that point. So if unexpected happens, you just deal with it, because it is going to happen. I always prepare for it, that something has to go wrong. It will. It's not wrong. It's like you can't plan for everything. I mean, it will happen.
Okay. Other questions from the audience? If not, any other questions from the audience? I think I've addressed most of the questions in chat.
So
we see a hand raised.
One hand is there.
Yes. Yeah, so, you can unmute that person.
Yes.
Meera, I guess. Yes. Hi, Meera. Meera, you can unmute yourself and ask it.
Yes. Hi, Girish. This is a question for Reena.
Yes.
In all your travels, what are the few essential items which you always carry?
I make sure the passport is with me all the time. In the sense, it's the most important only document that you need to make sure you have with you on yourself. Money, yes, of course, but money can always be, asked for or Venmo'd or whatever. Other than that, there is nothing essential unless you have medical issues, like, you are prone to heartburn, then you take your medication, or you're prone to asthma, then you take your inhaler. Other than that, there's nothing essential, because you can always get it. Depends where you're traveling to, right? And if it's needed by you for your personal use, yeah, you need to carry that. But other than that, I don't worry about anything.
So you basically buy it locally, whatever you need.
You can buy it locally, yeah. I mean, you can buy it locally, or if you're backpacking, you basically travel light. Yeah, I mean.
And I guess if you're going through a jungle, mosquito repellent or itch bite.
Oh yes, that's the thing.
You may have a travel checklist, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to do those things, yes, you do need the gear for if you're trekking, yes, you do need your trekking shoes, you need your trekking gear. If you're walking through a jungle, you need a lot more things. But if you're generally traveling, then yeah, it depends what you're doing, but you need your clothes. If you're traveling in a cold place, you need your jackets.
Right.
But essential items, other than your passport and your money, I don't worry about anything else. The medications for the individuals, if I'm going with them. But other than that, nothing.
Other questions? And Meera, if you had a follow-up, you could ask them.
No questions.
Okay, so to conclude, Reena, this has been very enlightening to all of us. Thank you so much for sharing your journey through life. Through we can at least vicariously have pleasure of going to 51 countries via you. We'd love to know more on many of your other journeys over time as well. And thank you so much again to also share on the value potentially of reflecting, and that's so important as we grow. And I think the main thing is to get out of our comfort zone in whichever walk of life you are, whatever age you are, to try and push yourself. You've really opened eyes, young and old, I think, in that aspect.
I think, Girish, your work is also very essential. I mean, the generation that right now has so much access to information, I think your platform is a great tool for the young generation, or even not even young, I think everybody, to connect to, so that they can have resources, right? I mean, I don't think 30 years ago, I would even have this access to talk to somebody sitting in the US, right? But right now, look at the dynamics. It's absolutely reversed. So I think your platform can be the anchor for the new generation, where they can have access. Like if you want to do architectural sessions with me, right? I can do that.
Yeah, so actually that's so interesting. Thank you so much for bringing that up. So the goal of MySphere is to be a platform so that irrespective of a student's interests, whether it's architecture, the other day we had an economist, previously we had somebody from NASA, and we'll be bringing experts from different career paths to come and talk and, share a little bit of their journeys. And students can interact with them, and a lot of times even teachers and school staff can learn how to motivate the students, right? And I think you started off on your first or second slides when we started talking about your journey, saying that you used to go to these movies and see them with your dad, right? And that was part of the inspiration of going and traveling to different places and saying, well, I want to see it, even though you have traveled a little bit in India. So in a way, MySphere is a platform for the students to kind of experience that, actually interactively with people who've done it, and they can ask their questions, whether it's, in your case, it was the travel that was of interest, but like you said, you can talk about this architecture and just go deep into that. And so So the idea is to, have a platform for students to come and share these things, learn from it, and then more importantly, then also reflect on what they are doing, what their projects are, that kind of thing, and then they can showcase it, whether they're applying for an internship, applying for college, applying for
Absolutely.
a volunteer work somewhere. Yeah.
No, I really appreciate this opportunity to able to document my journeys, like the way you have helped me showcase it, because it's been, I haven't done it, right? Because I have not got this opportunity to do it in a public forum before. And as architects, we do create our portfolios and all, but it's never been this easy to access or learn from real people like this, right? So I think this is a great tool in my mind. But thank you everyone for listening. I hope you guys learned something or want to reach out to me. Talk to Girish. I'm right here. He knows how to get hold of me.
So thank you again, Reena. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, participants as well. Yeah. Okay. With that, we'll end the meeting.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.